morning, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Yeah.
All right, yeah,
Yeah.
all right. That is good. Just get this on silent here. All right,
Here, these work before you start.
they do work. All right, that's a good sign. All right, how many, who's been in the company at least 5 years? All right, 10? No, 10? Keep your hands up.
Do I count?
Count,
Yeah, you can hear us.
kinda. Kinda, and then hold on, keep your hands up, and then how, okay, how many, how 11? 12?
Wait, how long, when did you start it?
It was let's see, I joined
It was May 27th,
January
2009, so 14 years ago. All right, yeah, when did you join? How,
It was.
we had ju-
Right as
oh.
you moved in here,
yes, and that's about the same thing, we had just moved in here too, right? That's about when you came in,
2011.
11, okay.
It was just after.
Yeah, I thought you were December 2009, weren't you? Or
I wasn't. I was January 29th, 2011.
11, oh, you were 11 also.
I was January 2010 in the old building.
Yeah, that's right, because you would have been over there.
I think I was like.
Yeah.
10.
Because,
Me, Aaron Haga, Brandon Plant.
That's right, that's right.
and those that stay will be.
There, that's why, actually, I was looking, that's why I was reading that. I was like, wow, it's impressive. So some of you, so
This used to be my office.
it did, we seem to, right where you're sitting is about where I sat, literally.
Oh, it was
Same,
yours then?
right, right.
That's funny.
Yeah. Because it was a training room, then we made it offices and yeah, it's, yeah, anyway, I love it. Someone said you're trying to come back and I act like it's 2016. I said, kind of, but kind of not, if that makes sense. So more so from the standpoint, it's just fun to see the growth and just obviously the friendships and just watching people grow and watching like guys like Aubrey and others like Sell, and then Cody's been here forever, and Brenda Lee. I mean, when you came here, you were selling how many homes? What was the best you'd done?
Not enough, 12,
Yeah, well, and you've been in the business a little bit at that time.
long time,
Yeah. And your best year now has been,
52.
yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I love, I mean, I think if I recall, Cody, you were selling somewhere in the neighborhood around 20, give or take, was it? Or was that, do you remember the number?
It was 20.
Okay, oh, hey, look at that. I knew it was somewhere around there. And your best year has been,
75.
yeah. So just fun to see. So keep it up, keep going, especially some of these new guys like Brandon, right? Is that right? All right, Jordan, do you have a sale yet?
Working on it.
All right. Is he close?
Close.
All right, that's not fun. All right, so you two may, who's been, oh gosh, who's been here since, who was over in the other building over there? And you were, anybody else? Sure, we're okay. Anybody else? So I did a talk that was labeled, actually, I'm not gonna write this one up, but you may remember this talk. The talk was labeled, "Don't be a loser."
I do remember that.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, totally.
Do you remember that? Now I'm a little more politically correct and a little more kind, sorta, at times.
I'm fairly confident you said that every day to us.
Yes, yeah, and so the story goes where I'm sitting down with Kenzie. And as I'm sitting with Kenzie, I say, you know, I'm thinking this is gonna be this wonderful father-daughter, conversation. And I said, so tell me, what have you learned from me all these years? And she said, oh, that's easy. Don't be a loser. And I'm like, whoa, I'm assuming you heard me say this before because I haven't said this for years, but I'm like, no, that is not what I'm trying to do. So as time went on, of course, evolved, and hopefully she's learned a few more things that, of course, she's, conveying to Mr. Dylan Cooley, right? And to their new little baby that's next month, which will be fun to see. So with that being said, really what it turned into from that standpoint was this. And that is that something that I have believed for a long time, as I started looking at leadership and I started looking at what others are doing, it's this, and that is that winning, not whining, winning is in the details. And I have to tell you, I think I could ask Isaac, and if I just said, what's one of the most important things I would tell you? And I think I recently asked you this, didn't I? And he came and he said, oh yeah, I know that is winning is in the details. And I'm fascinated in this business by a lot of things. And I've watched a lot of agents come and go in the business. I've watched them succeed. I've watched them fail. I've watched them rise. I've watched them crash. I've watched them increase their business. I've watched them completely get out of the business. I've watched their excitement and enthusiasm. I've watched their discouragement and overwhelm in regards to when things change and things overcome, or there's things to overcome. But the one thing I've recognized is that this one statement, and I want to work off of this, and that is that if you really want to win the game of just simply life, it's going to come down to how is it that you're paying attention to the details. So I want to just give you a few things to think about in relationship to this. And I have to tell you that it started, before I get into that, it's good onto the other next point. I just want to go back in history. Back in 2002, October 2002, so 21 years ago, I had the opportunity to where I closed on purchasing a business, and the business at the time was Realty Executives. In fact, I was talking to an agent this weekend who lives in Arizona, and I said, hey, oh, by the way, I actually used to own a Realty Executive. He's like, oh, wow. Well, Arizona is really, Phoenix specifically is where Realty Executives kind of originated and started. And we were just talking, but it made me think about the fact of how important it is that as you start looking at these details and what is it that you need to do to succeed. And so for me, and it starts nearly 30 years ago, as I'm sitting there contemplating and really analyzing what it is that needs to be done to succeed in this business. And I mean, it started way back where my career started, and it's not even owned by the same people. It was a local franchise at the time, but I started at Coldwell Banker nearly 30 years ago. And I remember walking in, and as I walked into the office, of course, there was tremendous overwhelm in regards to watching successful agents, watching what they were doing, seeing maybe just some of a perspective of what they were doing. And I remember meeting, as many of you know, I started my career with a lady by the name, and she was in the office, and she's still there today, or in the business today. And many of you know her, but her name's Joan Pate. And I remember watching Joan really more so from afar. I didn't really know a lot about her other than I just knew she did a lot of business. People kind of hailed her as, did you grab that tissue that I needed? Thank you. I am like so dang hot. But part of it is I just flew in today. So I say flew, my arms are tired, right? That's what they say. So I've been up very early. I got up at 4 a.m. to get on a flight Pacific. And then here we are, Brenda Lee. But the commitment to golf was extraordinary this last weekend. All right. So with that, so I'm watching Joan Pate, and as I'm watching her and I'm observing what she's doing, I get a perspective. I mean, I watch her where she's doing a little bit of prospecting. She was following similar mentors, things like Mike Ferry and others. And, you know, she had a great relationship with her broker and managers. I'd watch the brokers and owners of the company, you know, like probably like, you know, I feel like at times I've got to, you know, what do you need? And I'd watch them just drop everything for Joan just because of what she represented. And at the time, she was the #1 agent in the world for Century 21. You know, Coldwell Banker. She was, you know, first agent in Utah to earn $1 million+ in commissions. And no one, I mean, you think back about 30 years ago, earning $1 million in commissions. That's like today earning $3 or $4 million. I mean, that was serious dollars. And so as I observe this, and I know that I've talked about this foundation, but something else that I've talked about, these points in the foundation, mindset, skills, discipline, and certainly it will get into some of that. But I want you to think about the fact of how serious do you take this business? Well, for me, it was about the time where we were looking at having children, Jennifer and I, and shortly thereafter, Jennifer got pregnant, and little Mackenzie, in so many words, was on her way. And for me, what I realized is that I needed to make a decision. And one of the decisions that I made is that I had met people, some of you certainly have heard this story, in the sense of, you know, I was mowing lawns and saw someone driving a nice car, and I said, hey, what are they doing? And gosh, if they're doing it, so can I. And I'll leave it at that. But what it really did is it made me look around at the people who are really succeeding. And what I began to realize really quickly was the fact of the details that they paid attention to. And I don't know what clicked, because the thing that was interesting is that at that moment, somewhere in that time frame of 28, 29 years ago, I remember deciding that I was not going to go to school. Now, back then, to not go to college was a big deal. Today, I would argue that it seems to be not as big of a deal. You have people that even the Bill Gateses of the world and others that never finished college, and people freaked out. But you see that, if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, you want to build a company or you want to do great sales like this group does, you can do some pretty extraordinary things. So I remember early on making this commitment about, let's just talk about winning the details. I made a commitment that I was going to master my ability to communicate and to sell. That's really point one. Because nothing's going to change in this industry for you. Because unless you're just going to, this is the thing I always talk about is, did you get better or did the market get better? And how about this one? Did you not get better and hence the market's not better? So now you're not better. I mean, you look at the opposite of that. And I still can remember years ago where a good friend, and he was well-intentioned. He was a neighbor, lived right across the street from Jennifer and our first little apartment over there on Downington Avenue. And he pulled me aside on a Saturday morning. He literally put his arm around me and he said, George, because he knew I'd stopped, going to the University of Utah. I got about 2 years done and I stopped. And when I stopped, he was so concerned that I wasn't going to get my degree that he pulled me aside and put his arm around me. And he said these words. He said, oh, George, you could do so much more with your life than, real estate and selling and the things that, frankly, what we all do together. And I have to tell you, at that moment, I took that pretty serious. I took it real serious from the standpoint like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not really doing something that great. And I mean, now think about it. Think about the respect factor that the public has for our industry. I mean, there was not too long ago that a USA article came out and said that used car salespeople are more respected than real estate agents. I just want you to think about that for a minute. So it wasn't such an off the mark statement of you could do so much better because of what he saw and how he either did or didn't respect people in real estate. And this was an individual who had a great business. So for me back then, it made me make a real line in the sand to say, okay, well, if I'm going to do this business in its most simple terms, I'm not going to half-ass it. That's pretty much it. And the thing that I watch in this industry of real estate is the number of people that try to do as little as possible to earn as much as possible. And that every minute, and I got a text just this last week that said, I can't do this because I need to conserve my energy. I said out loud, Cody, in my car, you can't conserve energy. You're not like a solar panel. You don't conserve energy. Right. And so the thing, I said this out loud, I was alone in my car as I was listening to this statement of this agent. You don't conserve energy. So the thing that I start looking at, I think, man, winning is in the details. So what does that mean? Well, first, it's a commitment that you're going to master this industry and that you're going to master the game of selling and that you're going to master the ability to communicate. And I watch the stuff that's going on right now with so many agents that I have to tell you, this weekend I was talking to Isaac. I said, oh, buckle up. I said, we're going to get real serious. I'm so irritated by it that I actually am irritated enough, just so you guys know, I'm irritated enough by it that I want to sell real estate. And because I've simplified my life and I want him and my other son who wants to get his license, I want to do some stuff. And I am fascinated the lack of commitment in this industry. And you may say, well, wait, are you sure? What about me? I don't know. Ask yourself. I'm not here to criticize anyone personally. But ask yourself, have you mastered this industry? Have you mastered the ability to communicate? Have you mastered the ability to close? Have you mastered the ability to get price reductions? Have you mastered the ability of every single nuance that could possibly happen in title or mortgage? I mean, you start looking at it and man, we agents are so quick to point fingers. Because not only do they lack the ability to run a business, but oftentimes they lack the ability to have conversation with people and lead them through. Someone makes a mistake and people, oh, I'm done with them, and they move on. Instead of saying, hey, you know what? I'm a great leader. I like you, so let's make sure we figure this out and work together so that the next time it doesn't happen. But what do most agents do? They just run all over the place to the next little shiny object. They run to the next little person who somehow doesn't make a mistake. And the problem is that everybody's going to make a mistake. And the biggest challenge even in this industry is all the turnover that I watch agents move through with the people that they put and assemble on their teams. Meaning their teams, not even just the agents. I'm talking about title, mortgage, escrow, home warranty, to inspections, to every single angle of it. So as you're moving through this, just ask yourself, like, again, what is your commitment? And so for me, when I was in my early 20s, man, I realized I may have lacked all of the skill sets and I may have lacked all of the abilities, but I was not going to be beaten in regards to the fact of my work ethic. And so for me, I made sure that I mastered it. And some of you don't know this, but and you may say, Cal, like, why is he saying? I was so. It was kind of about the same time. By the way, it was 16 years ago where I was so annoyed by watching what people were doing. The market was crashing, and I got annoyed. So instead of actually going out and speaking and coaching, I said to Jennifer, hey, you know what? I'm going to go do this for 18 months. That's actually how I met Nick. I went out and sold a house. And to his point of his integrity and what he did, and protected my commission with a new build, and it was awesome. And we have this brotherhood and friendship that we'll forever have. But I would just echo to you that back then, I was so irritated that I said, you know what, I'm going to go see how to do this again. Because I'd been running a company and teaching agents and showing agents and watching agents act like I don't know what I'm talking about, act like I don't know what I'm saying, ignore the words that I'm advocating, go down their own path. And you say, well, is that all wrong? No, not necessarily all wrong. Only if you don't want to earn a lot of money, it's wrong. But if you want to earn a lot of money, I can tell you that I believe I have the path. And so even as I got real close, like I look at like an Aaron Pearson back there. Remember you came in and you'd prospect with me. And I remember I'd sit down, there's other agents. I'd say, okay, hey, we're going to set an appointment. We're going to go on the appointment. We're going to take the listing. We're going to do that all today. I don't know if you were part of one of those moments. Set the appointment, go out on the listing today, take it, and then I don't know, a week or two later, have it sold. And you'll say, well, is it that easy? It is when you've mastered the ability to communicate. It is that easy when you have the disciplines and it doesn't matter what has to happen during the day. So again, I know I'm pounding this, but great leadership is about commitment. And it's about managing the story and the activities and the salesmanship and the communication and the skills that are necessary. And some of us are so committed to the nonsense of this industry that we see from all these talking heads. And the reality is that actually, I appreciated this statement. You appreciate this, Cody, you may have seen it, but I love it. Actually, little Sabrina Ferry was interviewed. And many people don't know, but she was a practicing real estate agent. And she was talking about basically AI and all the different changes, and all the different technologies. And she said, you know what's kind of funny? Nothing's really changed. But man, agents sure want to act like it's changed. And the only thing that's changed is the fact of, great, maybe there's some efficiencies to talk to someone faster, but in the end, you still have to talk to people. And that was really her message. I actually really appreciate it. I thought, it's what I advocate. Not a lot has changed, but man, we sure want to think it actually has changed. People always ask me, what would you do differently? What would I do differently? I would actually work harder and longer. I would actually knock more doors, talk to more people, make more phone calls, possibly focus on bigger transactions, because I've realized that they're not much different because they're all still people. Maybe that might be what I do. But in the end, I sit there and I ask myself, what is people's commitment to their business and to their future? And so I go back 15 years ago, and my script was this. Hey, George Morris, at the time it was Realty Executives. Hey, if you can find a single agent in the state of Utah that sold more homes than me, I'll sell your home for free. And I'd leave messages. I got to that point. And you say, well, man, and people would call me, Jordan, they go, who are you? And I'm like, just a guy selling real estate. Now, I don't need you to be number one, and I don't need you to sell the amount of homes I sold. But what I would ask you is, are you lacking the commitment that's necessary? I was talking to a team leader last week, and he said, what was is crazy is I am begging people to go to work, to actually work. So just go back to, again, like, what is your commitment to skills? What is your commitment to work ethic? What is your commitment to understanding this business at a whole other level? The thing that I find interesting is that most people look outside of themselves, and yet all the answers are already inside of you. They all are inside of you. So now go to point number 2. How you do anything. And I know this isn't a new concept. I mean, T. Harv Eker in his book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. I remember I read it. Actually, I read it. I know when I read it. I read it 19 years ago is when I read this book. How you do anything is how you do everything. But over the years, I've asked a question after that. So if you analyze for a moment and you self-reflect and you ask yourself, man, how I do anything is how you do everything. When people say, what does that even mean? What it means is that if you're cutting corners in the sense of, let's just anything, you're cutting a corner with your exercise, you're cutting a corner with relationships. I promise you, you're cutting corners in business. Or if you are lazy at home, I guarantee you're lazy in this business. You would say, well, I work hard. Yeah, but at what standard are we talking about? Basically, wherever you're doing something, the question I like to ask is this: where else is that or this, that showing up in your life? Just ask yourself that for a minute. Self-reflect. Like truly, like analyze for a moment. If you're lazy, where else is that showing up in your life? So I have a huge commitment in my life to winning. So I'm golfing this weekend, and I have these words said to me. Stranger, don't even know him. I was up at Bandon Dunes on the Oregon coast. This guy is one of the managers who kind of roams throughout the different courses. Anybody been to Bandon Dunes besides me and Isaac? Dylan, you should go. I mean, he's been to the Oregon coast. All right. Okay. Beautiful. But he says this statement. Manager of Bandon Dunes, where he goes, you know, you're a pretty intense dude. And I said, yeah, people have said that before. And he said, no, really, like, you are intense. I said, well, this is the problem. I hate losing. I hate it. And I have to tell you, after that little conversation, we chuckled about it and we laughed. And I'm telling you, I thought, how many of you are okay losing? How many of you are okay going home today without an appointment? How many of you are okay without having a closing this month? How many of you are okay without taking a listing? How many of you are okay with earning what you earn? How many things have you settled on in your life? How is your schedule? How are your relationships? How is it, what's your health and vitality? I mean, you start looking at this, you start to recognize, like, wait a second here, man, wherever I am, the same stuff shows up. So yeah, Bandon Dunes on the golf course, I am intense. And there's times where just even yesterday, Isaac and I are barking at each other. Yeah, intense. I want to win. And some of you are like, well, I don't know. I mean, if I don't win, that's okay. If I set an appointment, that's okay. If I have a deal, that's okay. If it doesn't work, that's okay. And I can get that there's a balance to that. But just ask yourself, how committed are you to winning? If it's all about the details from your commitment to mastering this business, and you start looking at whether it's your work ethic, your commitments to skill sets, if it's cutting corners, if it's taking shortcuts, if it's laziness, if it's not working hard, if it's one day you're on, one day you're off, one day you work hard, 3 days you don't. Where else is that showing up? And I promise you, I'm not immune to this. I mean, wherever my challenges are in life, they show up in other areas of your life. Hence the reason, where else is that showing up in your life? And if there's a commitment to refining yourself to what I would call, to in so many words, the whole premise of, I believe, this entire organization is to truly be your best. And I love the fact that you sell real estate. I think it's great. But the reality is it's been said for nearly 14 years, which is we are a personal development company that happens to do what? Sell real estate. And so if you want to earn more money, then it's about your commitment to becoming more. Because your leadership is in direct correlation to your income, your personal development of your confidence, your mindset, your belief system, your skills of communication, your disciplines of doing more of what you say you're going to do. Who you become becomes the refining process of how much money you make. And the beauty I love about real estate is it requires it. So then you're the agent who complains, oh, the leads aren't that great. Everybody's a lead. But when you lack the skill set and you lack the ability to communicate and you lack the ability to break down the resistance or the walls and the barriers of a relationship or a conversation, then that's the amount of money you earn. And it all comes down to what is the beliefs that you have, from your self-image to your mindset, your mental toughness, your confidence. It has to do with a layer of skills to communicate, whether it's objection handling, whether it's even empathy, compassion, love, kindness, the skills of the ability to sign a contract, the skill set of knowing what to do next, whether it's a multi-family unit or units, or whether it's a single family home or any of it. And there's a deal that just closed yesterday with Isaac, and we were talking, he goes, I literally believe that not a single agent would know how to get that deal closed with what you did to do it. I said, I don't know if a single agent wouldn't be able to do it, but I can promise you, I know a lot of them wouldn't have. I would give the fact that probably 95% of them wouldn't, because it had to all do with what was happening with title and the way in which it was going to unfold and the cash transaction. And it was so volatile, so crazy, so sideways, that if it wouldn't have had the skill sets involved, I believe it would have imploded. And the person wouldn't have closed. The deal would have still been sitting there, either dead or someone trying to get it done. And I sit there and back, I'm like, but the commitment to the details. So just ask yourself, do you know everything there is really to know about title? Do you really understand lending? You say, oh, I don't need to. You don't? Do you understand truly the contract, the rep C? Or do you just leave it up to people who are in compliance? Do you really understand truly how the contracts really work? Do you understand truly how to close? Have you committed hours and days to understand how to handle objections, or to do a presentation, or to do any piece and part of this business? Have you truly committed yourself? You say, well, I don't know if I want to. Well, then I would argue again, where else is that showing up in your life? If you're not committed here, where else aren't you committed? If you're not committed to becoming your very best here, then where else are you not committed to becoming your best? Because it's all about that stuff. It's all about making sure that you really truly become that person for a place of commitment, and how you do everything is how you do anything is how you do everything. And then again, where else is this showing up? So when I start looking at leadership and it's about becoming our very best, then take a step back and ask yourself, okay, hold on a second here. Can I do this? And the answer is yes. Because there really isn't necessarily an economic cost. Now you could say, well, I could delay income and whatnot, but I would argue to you that the commitment to yourself changes the whole course of what's going to happen in your lives. and what you want to have happen and the dreams and the goals and the aspects of this business. So let me ask you a question. And I don't even need a show of hands, but ask yourself, are you really earning what you know you're supposed to be earning right now economically? Like, you know what you should be earning right now, or you may have even a goal or an objective, and are you earning it? If you're not earning the amount of money that you're supposed to be earning, just then ask the question, well, what has to happen to make that happen? And if you are, kudos to each one of you. But I would just argue that some of you could do so much more if you made a commitment to working from the inside out on this business. So when I gave that talk, do you remember the talk, Nick?
I just remember the title.
You just remember the title, Don't Be a Loser?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't remember the details.
Well, that's right. There you go. No pun intended, right?
Yeah.
But the details were really, I went through a series of, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 things, Nick,
Right.
of the details it takes to win in this business. You know, I have to tell you, I was talking to a coaching client of mine, and I said, tell me about your prospecting. And I started to talk about it. I said, okay, well, you use Red X. Were you aware that Red X, like the expired listings that come out tomorrow morning, let's just say, tomorrow morning they'll come out, but sometime during today, they will have expired. Meaning, most likely, let's just say that an administrator or an agent took the listing off the market around 1 or 2 this afternoon, which means that it's off the market for 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 hours before the day is over. But of course, because it was more at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, well, then when you pull the expireds for the morning, that won't show up, but it'll show up tomorrow. But then if you were paying attention to the details, you would pull the expires before, and hence I pulled them probably every 2 or 3 hours, if not more, throughout the day. And then by the time someone like an Aaron Pearson might have shown up, I said, nice try, Aaron. They thought you were terrific. They wanted to give you a chance, but they decided to list with me. Right? I'm just a bit jokingly, but the point is that by 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock tonight, we already have it listed, and the rest of the market didn't even realize it came off the market because, again, they're not paying attention to the what? Details. Guys, literally, like, pay attention. Everything matters. Do you know what the average, and these are just approximates, but do you know what the average score is between winning a PGA tournament and not? Did anybody watch any of the US Open golf? What was the margin of victory, Zach?
1 stroke.
1 stroke. 1. The difference of being remembered forever. Hall of Fame. The greatest trophy on earth, at least if you're in the US. And if you're in Great Britain, of course, it's the Open, the claret jug. But my point is 1 stroke. Did you watch Michael Phelps win all those gold medals? Milliseconds. And for 5 years, what did he not do? He didn't miss what? 1 single day of practice, did he, Aubrey? For 5 years. An agent is lucky if they go 5 days with prospecting. Think about it. When you start to realize that this business is not as complicated as you might think it is, and the barrier to this industry is very low. So the question is, what could you really do if you started paying attention to the details? What if every little nuance, like as I was a new licensee, you figured out every little tiny possible way to earn more money? What if you didn't settle in on just the way you used to do it, but you do it maybe differently? What if you truly committed your mindset? You truly committed and you said, okay, well, if I'm going to be the best, as I said, we get into this, but I just want you to think about this. Mindset, What is it that you do? What is it that you do to protect your mindset? I always say there's about 10 things. For years, I told this story. An agent came to me. She said, my mindset's off. I said, well, write these 10 things down. She wrote them down. I said, how many of them have you done today? How about this week? Do you know what her answer was out of the 10?
Coaching.
Coaching, right, Brenda Lee? 1 thing out of 10. I am always fascinated as to how committed people are to staying in the mindset that they have, especially when it is not serving them. They so want to stay there. Don't underestimate our own, I do it, our own personal sabotage is frightening. Frightening. Visualize your goals, see them. Nothing's ever been created. Someone didn't see it first. Number 2, a review of your business plan. When was the last time you looked at the blueprint? Can you imagine building a house, not looking at the blueprint? Can you imagine just basically guessing? Well, I think we'll just throw it up here. I think the doors are supposed to go here. Well, I think maybe I might prospect today. I think maybe I might knock some doors. Well, I don't know if I want to today. The weather's not good. I mean, you start looking at what agents do and the variance of their commitment, it's crazy. Because again, they're not following their plan. And I would add to that, by the way, your schedule. Okay. Number 3, again, these aren't in particular order, but just ask yourself, what are you reading? What did you read today? Number 4, what did you listen to today? Number 5, and by the way, I love it when I talk about this stuff and people go, well, I heard that before. Well, then why are you still earning the same amount of money or less than you were before? Why is it that you're not seeing 20, 30, 40, 50% increases every single year in your income? It always has to do with what your mind is doing. It always does. So just pay attention. Again, what are you listening to? What are you reading? Okay, what are you watching? And by the way, anything on these things, on this list of mindset, and some people, what I love it. Oh yeah, I went to Tom Ferry last week. It was amazing. Really, what was so amazing? Because there isn't nothing, there's nothing new. It's not that in fact, if I knew he was here, I would have texted him and said, dude, you want to play golf? Because I haven't seen him for a few years and we played a lot of golf together. It's not that he has anything wrong to say. It's not anything that Tom or Mike has anything wrong, or Buffini. None of them have anything necessarily bad to say. You may lean towards a particular personality that you like better than another. You may classify this person has more truth than another. Great, knock yourself out. But it's all the same stuff, just repackaged. Truth is truth, and this quest and this desire, this searching for truth. And years ago, when I was in my early 20s, I said, I will find the truth. And people used to label it, oh, you're a Mike Ferry guy. No, I am George Morris. I am on a quest for truth. And I don't care where I get it. I don't care who gives it to me. I'm not sitting here thinking it has to be from one person. It doesn't matter where I got it. What matters is my commitment to figure out how to become the best version of myself. And so I started realizing, wait a second here, here's just a short list. That's only half of the things. Ask yourself, what have you done this today so far? Next. I'm going to put here mentors, and number 7, I'm going to put coaching. Mentors are people you don't pay. Coaches are coaches that you do pay, right? Mentors who you go to and you say, hey, I've observed, in a good example is the guy who built all these buildings, right? Tom Lloyd, some of you know him, who owns these, built all these buildings. He's an amazing mentor and friend. I love spending time with him. Sometimes he's rough on me. And sometimes he's like, hey, you're doing great. But I love talking to him because I get better when I do. Coaches are people who you pay. Next. I'm just going to put here friends and family, basically who you spend your time with. People will tell me, yeah, you're the equivalent of your 3 closest friends. No, you're not the equivalent economically or who you are of your 3 or 4 or 5 closest friends. No, you're not. You are the equivalent of the people you spend time with. I have some of my closest friends, and guess what? I don't get to spend a lot of time with them. I'm busy, they're in another state, I'm in another state, whatever. But I don't spend a lot of time with my closest friend and family at times. So just remember, your income is in direct correlation to who you spend your time with. If you continue to spend time with people who don't earn money, you will be the victim of not earning a lot of money. And please forgive me, but it is all relative. Because as many times as people will say, I'm earning a lot, well, by whose standards? Yours or Warren Buffett's, as an example. And that doesn't mean that I'm not excited for any amount of money you want to earn or that you do earn, but just ask yourself, I bet you look at the people you spend your time with, and there's not going to be too big of a difference in regards to your incomes. Make sense? So make sure you spend time with people who earn more with you. And these mentors, how do you get to know them? It's simple, just like I know you did, Nick. You went out and said, hey, Tom, can I take you to lunch? And he said, no, I can't. You can't take me to lunch. And he said, but I'll take you to lunch. Pretty simple. Some of you guys are like, well, I don't know. How do you do it? You ask. And don't do this, by the way. Hey, can you be my personal mentor? You want to freak the other person out? They don't need be another person's mentor. But hey, could I bounce a few ideas off of you? Hey, I just want to sit down with you for a few minutes and get some advice. I've been so privileged to sit down like the Ellis Ivories or a Bill Child who took me golfing, and it was one of the best 4 hours I spent at the Salt Lake Country Club. And if you know who Bill Child is?
Yeah.
Took it over from his father-in-law, R.C. Willie. And my favorite conversation was after he goes, hey, I got to get out of here. You're going to have to finish these last 2 holes. Bless you. That was very silent sneeze. Wow. And he described that Warren had just sent his G5 and he was going back to meet with him. And he described to me the conversation of him meeting Warren Buffett for the first time. And Warren, after he's done talking, he stood up and he said, Bill, do we have a deal? And Bill stood up and shook his hand, and Warren said, great, we'll let the other guys, the attorneys, get what they need to get together. Let's go hit lunch. And it was an awesome experience just to hear the story of him selling R.C. Willie to Warren Buffett. And how did I get that? Just simply because I said, hey, can I bounce a few ideas off of you? Could I get some advice from you for just a minute? I need your help. And today he's still a mentor. Today an Ellis Ivory. Today a Tom Lloyd. Just some of the most wealthy people in the state of Utah economically. Because when I was like an Isaac's age, I just simply said, hey, can I ask you a few questions? People want to help people. So if you're staying around the same people in regards to your friends, maybe you can't change your family. I get that. And although they may be well-intentioned, just because they're well-intentioned doesn't mean they're right. Just because they're well-intentioned, remember, does not mean they're what?
Right.
Right. Okay. Number 9. Exercise. Again, these are not in particular order. Right, but get some cardio, whatever. Right. And then number 10. For me, I'm going to label it this way, but it's basically participation. And meaning like what you're doing, by the way, because I'm preaching to the choir, and guys, it's because I'm hard on you. You're here like, well, I'm here. Why is he being so hard on me? Because you're here. That's what we do. Because I want you to wake up. But basically, participation in trainings. Like, what are you going to participate in? And imagine if every single day or week you were doing these things, like you're really visualizing, we could put another word next to that, meditated. What if you reviewed your business plan and your schedule and you said, man, this is what I'm doing. And the visualization, by the way, is, again, we want the emotion. I want you to see and to feel where you're going. And then all of a sudden you review it, you read some great books, you listen to some awesome stuff, you watch some good things, you spend time with maybe a mentor, you have yourself coached, you get with your friends and family, the people who you know are going to lift you up, you're exercising, and men, you're participating. It's pretty hard to fail when you do that. Because you will rise above all of it economically because of what you think and what you believe and what you say. Because if you can say, think, see, feel differently, then you're going to act differently. And the thing is I've said this, there's not one of you in here that shouldn't be selling 50 plus homes. And maybe you articulate it differently. Maybe it's the amount of money, but there's no question that everybody in here should be doing that. It's just what you've sold yourself on because you're great salespeople. Say I'm a great salesperson. Wow, that was not too convincing, by the way. One more time, Zach. I am a great salesperson. That's right. And you're selling yourself every day on the good and the bad. And by the way, we all do it. That's why I've come up with things over the years. I can do more and handle more because I'd say to myself, I'd sell myself on the idea I can't do anymore. Bless you. Right? I would sell myself on the idea that I hated prospecting. So what did I do? I said, I demanded of myself the moment it came in my head, I love prospecting. I set appointments every single day. I said things like, it doesn't matter how I feel, because how many people felt like prospecting today? All right, well, that's okay. I'm 2 out of what? I don't know, 30 people, 25 people in the room here. 2 people felt like it. So years ago in my 20s, I said, you know what? I'm going to manage my story. I'm going to manage my emotions. I'm going to manage the language inside of myself. I didn't even I didn't even know who Tony Robbins was. I just said, you know what? It does not matter how I feel. I prospect anyway. Some of you have a hangnail. You're like, oh, I don't know if I feel like it. It really just hurts because if I die, I'll like it bleed out. Hangnail.
Hangnails are painful.
Sorry. Okay. But my point is that you all of a sudden you get your mind right, everything else begins to follow. Now come over here and go, all right. Because I have the benefit, it's worse, many of you are, anybody a Forrest Gump fan? See, I can actually officially say, Rich, I am not a smart man, but I know what love is. And I always think about that because he's talking to Jenny, right? His little girlfriend, the gal he loves. And I realized early on, I'm like, wait a second here. Now people say, Zach, get your mindset in order. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means this stuff. And then people would say, well, yeah, but you got to have these great communication skills. Well, what does that mean? Well, all of a sudden I started realizing, well, hold on here. Number one, I'm just going to put here number one, prospect, but the number one skill is to set an appointment. I mean, I even look at some of the big deals like a Brandon is doing back here, and you guys are doing so good on this stuff. And I'm thinking, well, it all happened because of some prospecting, some of these big deals. So how effectively are you at setting appointments every day? Like, guys, you're not putting people on the moon. You're not solving cancer. You're not, you're trying to set an appointment daily is the key. And the thing that's so funny to me is the number one skill set that is needed. And people are like, yeah, well, I don't want to do that. And so then you do this. You either wait for business, you'll either go out and buy it with extraordinary amounts of money wasted on leads at some level, or number 3, you go out and you get it. And the thing is if you can get it, meaning because you prospect, because you know how to set appointments, then the 3.5 or 4 million people in the state are a lead. Everybody's a lead. Oh no, I got to pay my Boomtown bill. And I'm not saying that I mean, I have a Boomtown account with Isaac and Dylan. Great. But I also think it's interesting, by the way, the only closings he's had is because he was what? And guess where it didn't come from? Boomtown. That doesn't mean you can't call internet leads. I don't care if it's Sync or the new AI ones. Oh yeah, those are the ones. Really? Those are the ones. Waiahopa, Jopa, whatever that one is now, Lopa. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the one. Really the one. How about you just get on a phone or knock on a door and talk to people? Then because you have skill sets, extraordinary things, good time. And I've said this, man, if you will talk to another, we're going to finish up here talking about this one in a minute. But I really believe that if you knocked on every door and like we're dry heaving, possibly even throwing up, someone would go, I really like the smell of that. I like what you're doing. I'll work with you. You talk to enough people and you throw up on them, they're gonna like it. I like your smell. I like what you're doing there. I mean, you may say, oh, come on. Some of you are still talking to 5 people a day, 6 people, 8 people, 11 people. Go, wow, you know, it's a tough day. Really? Does anybody have any kids that just the last few weeks? We got 2 kids that just went on trek. Yeah, who has kids actually? Okay, either you're a recovering person from a trek at Martin's Cove, if you were, you know, or you went on a pioneer trek. Has anybody done a pioneer trek as a kid or had kids do it? No one? Heard of it? Pulling wagon carts? And my daughter at 16 comes, I don't understand the purpose of this. It's because you're supposed to suffer so that you know what it means to have what you have. How about pulling it for 2,000 miles? I still don't understand it. I said, I know, and you won't until you're older. Because you have to suffer. And I've said this, I'm joking, I was like, people are like, oh, it's so hard. You don't understand. No one answered. They were all so mean, really. I've always loved the statement. I mean, I don't know why I'm reminiscing about this lately, but Mike Perry Cody. But I remember Mike years ago, he said, what's the worst thing they could say? And you know, people say, oh, they could say no. They go, no, they could pull out a gun and shoot you. So saying no doesn't seem like that big of a deal. I'm like, perspective. Perspective. Isn't that a great point? A fun point. Okay, so skill sets. Set an appointment. Number 2. I try to put these in a little bit of order. This is good. And I was with John Syatt. We were 23 years old, and we would spend 2 hours a day role playing. Some of you are lucky if you spend 2 minutes, if none. And you may say, well, this doesn't sound that fun. I don't know if it is always supposed to be. Of course, it's more fun to have people call you. Of course, it's more fun to call warm leads. Of course, it's more fun to have people reach out to you. But I am fascinated where people are trying to turn this business of real estate sales, which is the direct sales business, into retail. When you're in the retail business, people call you, people walk in, people walk into the Nordstrom. Nordstrom's is a retail sales. They aren't out prospecting and saying, Rich, you need to come in today. We need to buy a suit. There's not an army of Nordstrom's prospectors saying, come in and buy suits. They spend millions of dollars a year on advertising to lure you into hoping that you will somehow shop and buy something. That's called retail. You're not in the wait and buy modes of real estate. That's not the standard this industry is set. But people keep trying to act like it is. And when the markets, by the way, are extraordinary, it works. But when you are in a flat, transitional, changing, normal market, those models don't work. Isn't it fascinating that a lot of the homie signs continue to come down? And they're like, and now the advertisements, because no one else is advertising, they're like, hey, you should advertise here. Have you noticed a lot of them are down? Does anybody notice that? No?
Yeah.
I do, because I think it's hilarious. I think it's hilarious, not because of the cut, because those models only work when the markets are strong. Another, what I consider a non-full service brokerage, what do? A month ago, because they were going to go under. Guaranteed. So what do they have to do? Oh, crap. Better raise all of our fees. And they have to raise their fees because, again, the model doesn't work in hard markets, or what I would call, again, normal markets. Because It just simply doesn't, because you have to have revenue to run an organization if you're going to support people in it. Okay, number 3 or 2. Lead follow-up. So many stats from the division or NAR about this, but general rule, 25 transactions a year are lost because of poor lead follow. Anybody gone into their neighborhood like I did, by the way, on the corner of the road that we turn into in our neighborhood? And guess whose sign is on there? It's a lady I talked about in the beginning. Yeah, shocking. Joan Pate's sign. I get to see it every day. It's awesome. And then you get Jennifer going, hey, Isaac, I still don't understand. Why haven't you knocked our neighborhood? Huh, Isaac?
Let's do it. You got your-
Yeah, I
Kate
think-
owns it.
I'm not saying it would have gotten the listing, but again, how many times is it that you've seen that? How many have seen a listing show up in their own neighborhood, just like we have one? And then you wish, oh man, I should not. Oh man, I should have followed up. Oh man, we all do it. I do it. It happened to me. It's happened to Isaac. It's happened to you. It happens to all of us. So Isaac, because Isaac got mad at me for calling him out in these meetings, Nick. But I'm gonna continue to do it so he can continue to be mad at me. It wouldn't be a father-son relationship without that, Nick.
Hey, but if he's got that, he'll do
So
it.
Isaac, how many doors within the surrounding area of our house are you gonna knock on within the next 7 days? Could you please tell this group?
What's the right answer?
I don't know. How about you help? Zach, what's the right answer? What would you say?
What?
Well, around our neighborhood. I mean, how many,
7 days,
sure, in the next 7 days.
100. He's gonna.
That's right. And by the way, so I was thinking, well, you know what? You're a big door knocker, aren't you? Aubrey, how many doors should he knock on in the next 7 days?
200. Man, I was trying to take it easy. I was calling it.
Okay,
I was trying to-
okay, deal? You'll go with him? Deal? Okay, 200 doors. And if he doesn't, he owes Zach how much money?
He doesn't eat a.
He just got it. He's getting it. He's getting paid today, so he's got a lot of money in his pocket today.
I don't want any money from him. I want to watch him eat a can of cat food. I think it's gonna go.
Don't do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, no, listen. I've been in accountability like that, and I promise you will do.
Do it.
No one wants to eat cat.
Okay, so 200 doors within the next 7 days,
Or cat food at base camp.
or cat food
At Summit, at Summit, in front of everybody.
well, we don't have Summit next month because
Great,
it's
I
July.
will spoon feed it to you.
No, we gotta do base camp.
Base camp.
Yeah,
It's kind of sense. Next week.
Next
Is there base camp next week?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll let you choose the flavors.
Deal? Deal? All right, here we go. Guys, you see how easy this is? It's not that complicated. You guys are like, oh, I don't know if I want to. What's easier? I mean, we haven't gotten, I don't want to run out of time. What time is it? Is it 12:03? Oh, gosh, girl, let's make the list. All right, number 3, let's just put the list down. Number 3 is the ability to, I'm just gonna put your pricing, CMA, the ability to get pricing right. Number 4, pre-qualification, can you pre-qualify whether it's buyers or sellers? Number 5, can you present to buyers or seller? Typically, it's always, I often don't say listings there, but can you present? And guys, when I started realizing these were the skills, I realized, well, I can do this. It's just skill sets. If you were going to become a lawyer, a doctor, a CPA, you just simply learn the skills. And again, if you're representing a buyer or seller, I think they're wanting you to know the skills. Just like I want to know, like, here's a good example. Our daughter Bella is having to have a heart procedure / surgery. She has to have an ablation. She's 16. So on September 5th, unless there's a cancellation, we'll move it up. But we met one cardiologist and we're like, and they used these words. They said, Jennifer said, how many ablations have you done? And she said, we. And I realized I didn't want to confront her, but she was a young doctor. And I went, we means very few. I mean, we means like a newer agent who says, essentially, we have sold this many homes. I want to know how many surgeries she had done. Well, by the time it was said and done, we realized, let's have the same doctor who did Isaac's surgery, John Syatt surgery, was the partner of the surgery I had, where they deal with the electrical parts of the heart. And so just remember, would you not want your doctor to have the skills? Well, they're expecting you to have the skills. And they don't even know that you might have them. Like this client that we just closed on, I can tell you that I don't know if anybody would have got it closed. Maybe someone would have, maybe I'm sure you guys would have. I mean, you look like you could have gotten it done. I think so, right?
Thanks, George.
Yeah, I'm serious. This group could have got it done. But I say that to you, the fact that they might not even know you have the skills, but you want to be so efficient that I remember when I had my surgery for my heart, I walked in, I realized this doctor is acting like it's a root canal. Like it's no big deal. What's the problem? Why? Because he had the skills. Now that same doctor who did my heart surgery is the head of all cardiology at the University of Utah. I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know he was that good. Just like people don't know you're that good. They take it for granted that all of us are that good, but they're not. And if you master the skills, you'll be there, right? 6, objection handling. Number 7, you can't read my writing or I'm getting ahead of you, just tell me. Objection handling, the ability to close, like actually close the sale, get them to sign a contract. Number 8 is future pace, making sure you're predicting the future so they're not surprised when you say, hey, expect that closing costs will be asked for the buyer who comes in and buys this home. Don't be alarmed if that's what happens. Don't be shocked because that's probably what will happen. Number 9 is making sure that you can negotiate the contracts. Number 10 is your ability to give great customer service. I remember I was messing that up big time, right? Customer service. Number 11, there's 12 of these I like to talk about. Your ability to work with buyers, highly qualified buyers. And number 12 is your ability to get price reductions. Guys, notice how I can rattle these off. If you master every one of those skills, you will make a tremendous amount of money. If you have your mind right, your skills right, and then we'll wrap up here with just a couple of things here. Discipline. 1, 2, and 3 regarding discipline. Discipline is about never forgetting what you desire. What do you want? Desire is defined with knowing a destination, but it is weaved and wrapped around with tons of emotion. When you have a desire for someone, that means there's passion, there's energy, there's chemistry when there's desire. So what is your desire? Because desire and discipline go hand in hand. Number 2, accountability. Accountability. Being accountable for just 2 things. Because I believe that these are almost the only 2 things. Notice we just did one with Isaac. And that is to prospect and that is to exercise. Sometimes add a third, you could add in practice. But practice, prospect, and exercise. If you put accountability in there for those 3 things, again, you'll win. Because there's going to be more days, just like only 2 of you in here said, yes, today I felt like prospecting. That's just the nature of the beast. And the last thing is your insurance policy to your dreams. And what I mean by that, when I say accountability, absolutely write a contract. Accountability, we don't have time, but accountability for me is on the outside. Self-discipline is on the inside. We all want to be self-disciplined, but when you just, and wrapping up on this one, if you know what you're supposed to do, you agree with what you're supposed to do. Like you're like, hey, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know I'm supposed to, maybe talk or master this or work on this. I know. And you know what? I agree. I agree with it. Then you will manage the pain around that. You will make it more painful to not prospect than to prospect or to do something different. It has to be more painful. So what's more painful? Eating cat food, which I've done that one for years, by the way, Zach, and man, that's a motivator. And you hear people talk about paintball, shot callers, money, talking in public. People, oh my God, that's the whole point. That's the whole point. I had a few buddies that I knew would put a dog collar around and put it on level 12. And you had to be shocked 3 times in the neck if you didn't hit your numbers. Guess what's more painful? The shock collar than prospecting. So what do you think we all of us do it? We go to the area of least resistance, least amount of pain. And so that's what we dial in, to not have pain. You don't speed at times because you think there might be a ticket. You wear your seatbelt so you don't get hurt. We always go to the place of the least amount of pain. We always go to the easy part. We always go to the easy place. We all do it. I do it. You do it. And the areas of your life that you are excelling in at the highest levels are always the places where you have managed to conquer the pain. You don't think it was painful for Michael Phelps to not swim for 5 straight years every day? You read his story, he said he would stand there at the edge of the pool going, I hate this. I hate this water. You don't think there's days where you stand in front of a phone and wonder if, and you're not debating with yourself that you hate it? Put yourself in a place where you ensure your dreams with accountability. But some of you are like, wow, that seems a little zealous. Well, just question is, how important are your dreams and your goals? Because there's not one of you in here that can't make the contacts. There's not one of you in here who can't master a script. There's not one of you in here who can't do some of these, if not all of these things in regards to your mindset. Because if you will do them, extraordinary things will happen. I promise you. So when I say I get frustrated, I'm fascinated because Cody's been a great coach, and some of you have coached others, and you've been mentors, and you watch people who have such a desire for a dream and for a goal or something that's so important for them in their life. And you sit back and you're like, you can have it all of it. And the reason you don't have it is because somehow you forgot to pay attention to the details of mindset, skills, and discipline. You forgot that how you do anything is how you do everything. And all of a sudden, when you start paying attention and you kind of wake up, well, then all of a sudden, you'll protect your future. Because I'll leave you with this last thought, and it's quick. Once I wrote these things down, why I can rattle them off so quickly is because I came to the conclusion personally that I could master every one of those. I couldn't pass math 1105 or 105 when it was back in my day, but I sure as heck knew that I could learn this. I could learn this. And so because I could learn it, I could master this industry. So again, if you're falling short economically, you may ask yourself, I don't know why. Stop asking that question and ask a better question, which is, what must I do? What do I need to do next? Who do I need to become? Ask questions that create action. Ask questions that create solutions. Asking why will not give you an answer. You'll whine about it. You'll question yourself. You'll lack certainty because of it, but you will never come to a conclusion of what really needs to happen. When you ask questions with what and how and who do I have to become? What must I do? How must I approach this business? All of a sudden, everything changes. Don't stop asking questions. Don't stop fighting. Don't stop surging and fighting for what you want. Or maybe better words, it doesn't have to be fight, maybe just going after and wanting and desiring and having and living the life that you're destined to live. Because again, I go back to, there's not one of you in here who shouldn't be making a ton of money. But somehow in the midst of that, if you're not, somewhere in the midst of that, you stopped, sabotaged, gave up, discounted the importance of it. Didn't think it was that big of a deal, didn't prospect, didn't get your mind right, didn't have the skill sets. But the beauty that inspired me is, again, I knew I could learn all of these things over time and that I then could earn the money I wanted to earn. Hence why I was able to say #1 agent in the state of Utah. And by the way, anybody in here who is 22 and 22-year-olds, 21, 20, how about 3, 4, year 7, 8. How are you?
I'm 30.
You're 30. Wow. You are looking young. I thought you were 27, 28. Who's the youngest guy here? Is it Isaac?
Probably guys.
How old are you?
20.
All right, you're
21
20.
next month.
Okay, well, I was 22 when I made a decision that I would master this. And today it is easy and it will get easier. But no matter where you are, no matter what age you are, this is about working from the inside out. It is not the market. It is not the conditions of the market. It is not the rates. It is you. And when I realize I can fix it because I am the problem, but I'm also the solution, man, everything changed for good. So guys, any last thoughts, comments? Love being with you. Thank you for being here. Good stuff happening. Make it happen. Ms. Peck, anything? Any closing words of advice?
Love it. I love it all. Great reminder.
It is. Just like Socrates said, right? Learning is remembering. I don't propose that there's anything new. And that's my whole point. But it may be new to you to do it, but it's not new in its concept. So go take it and go make it. Go make it. Go make the money you're supposed to be making and live the life that you're supposed to live so that you're not having to say no more than you get to say yes because of who you've become through the process of learning and developing and becoming. That's the beauty of this business, to develop yourself so that you can have everything you desire. Okay? All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the week. Making it happen.